Hi, I'm Veronica and I have a very special festive practice for you. I know that you might be feeling a little bit stressed or exhausted after all these Christmas preparations. So I would like to treat you with half an hour of restorative yoga, in which we're going to gently open the front, the sides and the back of the body. So simply lying down and letting go. You are going to need a couple of props, but don't worry, they don't need to be any specific yoga equipment. They can be just things you find in your home. So if you don't have a yoga bolster, you could use instead a rolled up thick blanket. You might find a chair handy. Take a lot of cushions. Maybe if you have yoga blocks, you can use them as well. And an additional blanket to cover yourself up, maybe some socks or a warm jumper. Let's begin. So the first position is a supported forward fold, and for that you will need to set up first. I would suggest to place the rolled blanket or a couple of cushions underneath your knees to begin with. And that might not be enough at all. So just make sure that you have some extra props if you would like to bend your knees even more. Now the second thing you want to pay attention to is whether your hips start rotating backward, whether there is that tilt, that sensation that something is pulling you back. And if there is, then it's good to place the wedge cushion, smaller or bigger, just behind your sit bones. So you might need to be higher than I am now. It all depends on your personal situation or your personal anatomy. But what you want to feel is that you don't need to engage all your muscles. You don't need to use that physical strength to stay upright. That your pelvis is in a position where it rotates forward, so that your upper body can simply sink forward. Now it might be that you will be very high up. I will show you in a moment a version with a chair, or you might want to use some extra props. So you don't really want any gaps. So if you feel that part of your body is hanging in the air, then you might use a folded blanket or a cushion in between of your belly and your thighs, which somewhere at the groin, so that you can feel that you are sinking the weight of your whole upper body onto some props. So the legs are relaxed, you're not tensing them or engaging them in any way, and you want to be in a place where there is no pull at the back of the legs. So it has to be comfortable. This is the most important thing to remember about restorative yoga. So once you are in a position when there is no discomfort anywhere, not along the back side of the body, neither in the groin or in the hips, you can think how else to support your head. And maybe you want to support it with your own hands, or maybe you just want to use props in some way, in one way or the other. So be creative with the props. You can really do it your own way. And maybe you want to have your forehead resting on your hands, or you prefer to have one cheek on the ground. But we will be using this position later. So for now, I suggest head straight. And now I will show you the version with a chair. So if you didn't really feel completely supported in the previous version, or there was any sort of discomfort, you could try the version with a chair. And here as well, you can have support underneath your knees to take away that extra pressure from the back of the legs. Again, you can have something behind you, and you don't really need to fold very far. So the chair is meeting you quite soon, and you could choose to have your forehead resting on your forearms in this version, and then you would still get the full benefit of this pose, so long as you feel that something is happening, some very gentle sense of opening in the back of the body or at the back of the legs, but without overstretching, without the strong sensation of a stretch. Then you know that you are in the right place. So you choose the version with a chair or without chair, with any amount of props. Now, once you found that most comfortable version of this pose for you, and you're sure that there is nothing that would cause you a discomfort, find stillness. We're going to stay in this position for a few minutes. So you have to be absolutely sure that this pose is so comfortable that you can easily, pleasurably stay here for that duration of a few minutes. And it's so comfortable that you could easily fall asleep in it. And you don't want any engagement in the body. So you really don't need to tense up or engage any muscles, not in the legs, not in the neck, not in your face. And focus on letting go, of allowing your own body weight to pull you down towards the ground. So it's as if you're surrendering to gravity. With each exhalation, sinking into the support underneath you, giving the weight of your legs, giving the weight of your pelvis, and the weight of your upper body. There's nothing to change, nothing to achieve, no goal in this pose. If you simply stay in the pose without trying to deepen it or change it, you will give the chance to your nervous system to respond by releasing. And maybe after a few minutes you will notice that you're feeling different in this pose than in the beginning. So invite the softness to your body and send that message that you can let go. You don't need to hold or do anything. You will be supported from underneath. That's why it's so important that the props do give you that full support. And you might be a little bit difficult to stay in perfect stillness. You might have an urge to wiggle around, scratch. Ask yourself, is that really necessary? Or is it your mind that is trying to cope with stillness? And perhaps this is what you need to do. Go ahead and do some micro movements then, but keep it slow and gentle. Don't feel obliged to stay in stillness. The only permission you need to make any adjustment, any change is your own. If you need to come out, you can always come out earlier. If you were staying with one cheek, resting, it might be a good idea to change the cheeks after a while. Observe how you react to stillness. Without expectations or judgment. You could try to take a deeper breath in and breathe out loudly, maybe through the open mouth. Why not? Maybe one more time. Perhaps that loud exhalation allows you to let go just a little bit more. Notice if you're feeling the same in this position like in the beginning, or if anything changed. And mentally prepare for slowly coming out. This process of coming out of the pose will be slow and gradual. You could first place the hands on the mat and then slowly start walking the hands towards you until you come back to verticality. And once you are vertical, you could slowly move away your props. And let your body decide what it wants to do after coming out. Usually it's a good idea to stay for a moment in stillness to notice that rebound that happens after coming out. Maybe staying with your legs outstretched and slightly leaning back. Giving yourself time to notice the sensation along the back of the body. And then if after all this period of stillness you feel like a little bit of movement, you could roll your legs in and out or gently tap the legs against the ground. Or maybe you want to give yourself a hug. So those are just suggestions. Do something that you really feel like doing right now. And then we're going to move to the next pose. The next pose is the reclining pose, but from the seated position. So for that, you're gonna start seated, and you could have your knees quite close towards each other, or you could have them wider apart, and you will see what feels more comfortable for your knees and for your hips. So it might be you are perfectly comfortable here, or you prefer to have your knees closer. And remember, you can always change it anyway. And then you're gonna need either a bolster or that rolled up thick blanket to have in front of you. And maybe some extra cushions, or if you have yoga blocks as well, so that you could bring whatever support you have here towards you if you need it. And once you have all these props handy, place one hand on either side of your support, and And then rotate the torso so that without overdoing it, without straining yourself, you're gonna have your chest and your belly facing your support. Once you've got that, you can slowly start lowering yourself towards it. And you will notice that there is still a big distance. Then you know that that's the time you want to create an inclined plane, some sort of support that will bring that rolled blanket or that bolster closer towards you. So remember that you are not lowering your side body to it. It's a different position. There's nothing wrong about it, but it's a different position. You want to rotate and lower your belly and the chest on your support. And then once you land, you want to make sure there are no gaps. And it's not that you barely touch the support, but you really feel all the weight of your belly and on the chest resting on it. Then the nose will be facing in the same direction as the knees. And that might be the moment where you want to experiment with the position of the legs. What is going to work better for you? Sometimes it's a good idea to support the knee of the leg which is farther behind you, for example. And you might want to come a little bit higher. Maybe you need extra blanket for your belly or your chest to sink into. So make all of these changes. And then once you're somewhere where you are fully comfortable, where your forearms rest comfortably, the whole weight of the head is given to the prop, the whole weight of your torso, where your legs, knees, hips are comfortable, that's where you want to stay. And just like before, invite yourself for that moment of stillness. You can have your eyes open or closed, it doesn't matter. But if you do have your eyes open, it's better to have the gaze fixed at one point. And it should not be the recording. And you might start noticing how your body is resting on the props underneath you and how your breath flows through the body. You might feel how your belly or your chest presses into the bolster when you take an inhale, and how it releases onto the bolster when you take the out breath. The easiest way to stay here and now is to follow your breath. Every inhale and every exhale. And you might start noticing what these stages of the breath do to your body. The expansion and lightness when you inhale, and the sinking, becoming heavier and softer as you exhale. Use the exhalation to help you to let go even further. Each exhalation is your chance to release. Each exhalation is the opportunity to soften even more. You might also notice that your breath naturally will be felt more in a particular part of your body. So perhaps you can feel that there is more sensation in one side of your rib cage. A bit more expansion, more space between the ribs. And as usual, if at any point this position stops being comfortable, feel free to change it. Adding the props, rearranging the props, or coming out of the pose altogether. You can take a deep inhale and then exhale with a sigh. Maybe one more time. And then mentally prepare for coming out of this pose. And for that you're going to give the weight through your hands so that the torso can still stay relaxed. And walk your hands towards your hips. Gradually, bit by bit, until you are vertical again. And only once you are vertical, then you can rotate, or rather derotate, to come back to the center. And maybe just for a moment, for that moment of rebound, stay with the feet on the mat. Noticing the difference between the right and the left side of the body and all the different sensations felt on either side. And then all you need to do is to turn 180 degrees to do the other side. It's going to be the same on the other side. You decide how to position your legs. And it might be actually that you might notice that it's not comfortable with the legs in this position on this side. So there might be some changes. It doesn't need to be symmetrical. The hip will be touching the short end of your prop, either the blanket or a bolster, and then both hands on either side of the prop. Rotate so that your belly and the chest faces it. Slowly lower yourself onto it. And again, if you feel that it's not enough, get extra layer, a blanket, a cushion, so that you're not hanging, so that you really feel that you are resting with all your weight onto your prop. And then cheek resting, nose facing in the same direction as both knees. If the knee which is behind you doesn't feel comfortable, you could prop it, or you could bring the knees together. You will see what works better for you. Check that you're giving the weight of your forearms into the ground, the weight of your head into your prop, the weight of your torso. And once you found a position which is comfortable, and it really doesn't need to be the same as the last time, find the stillness. eyes open or closed. Check for any unnecessary tension in your body. Maybe completely subconsciously you are clenching your teeth or gluing your tongue to the roof of the mouth. Check if you can swallow easily. If there is no tension in the shoulders. And give yourself that permission to stop holding. You are being held from underneath. You don't need to do anything other than simply being and observing. Remain present, but that presence is devoid of judgment, expectations. You are curious of your body, but fully accepting of it as well. You might notice the sensations in the right and the left side are very different. And that's perfectly normal. So remember, no stretched sensation is necessary. You want to be somewhere that feels so comfortable you could fall asleep anytime. Consciously letting go the weight of your body. On each exhale, more and more. And if you fine-tune your attention, you might notice that the breath has actually 4 stages. Inhale, short pause, exhale, and short pause at the end of the exhale. That short pause at the end of the exhale is the moment where you fully release. And when you are in perfect stillness. Other than that, the breath keeps on moving your body. Take a deep inhale. Full exhale. It can be with a sigh. And again. And then get yourself ready for coming out of this pose. As before, very slowly, in slow motion, it will be the hands moving towards your hips, towards your hips until you're vertical. And once you are vertical, twist, come back to the position when you have both feet on the ground. Stay for a moment, noticing all these sensations that still persist even after coming out of the pose. Noticing the right and the left side of the body. And we'll finish with opening the front body. For this position, you might want to use a bolster, or it might feel too high for you, which is my case. That's why I will use actually something smaller and softer. So I will use that rolled up blanket behind me. And it has to be long enough to support you from the lower ribs all the way to the top of the head. And you might want to have also something extra for the head itself, so that it's a little bit higher, like a folded blanket or a small cushion. Also keep handy 2 cushions or maybe 4 cushions. You might want to need them, maybe not. You will see which variation you choose. So once you get your prop behind you, you lower yourself in such a way that you're gonna have your lower ribs resting on that rolled blanket or a bolster, and your lower back will be free in the air. And then you might want to support additionally the back of the head, not the neck, the back of the head, with that extra cushion. Okay, so once you've got that, you can now check how it feels in your lower back, if there's any discomfort. If there is, you might choose even lower support, or maybe get rid of it altogether. And then you're gonna choose the position for your legs. So you could stay exactly as you are, with your buttocks on the ground and the knees bent, feet on the mat. You could also see how it would feel if you stretched out the legs. And for that, I really recommend you that you keep your something underneath your thighs, that you keep one cushion underneath each thigh, so that you can relax the front of the body more. And the third option would be to keep the knees bent and then move the knees out to the sides. And this is much more open. It creates more sensation in the groin and the inner thighs. So again, I remind you, you're not searching for a stretch here. If it's in any way uncomfortable, don't choose this variation. And you want to be sure that your legs are not hanging in the air. So you wedge in that cushion into the place where the buttock meets the thigh, and you want to make sure that the entire weight of your thigh is resting on the cushion. So if this is in any way too intense, and that also might mean you simply don't feel comfortable with this position, then choose one of the previous ones. And then the position of the arms. If you're gonna move them farther away from you, it's gonna be more intense for the front of the shoulders and the chest. Again, it might be too intense. You don't want a stretch. So find a place where the weight of the forearms is fully on the ground, but you are not feeling any strong stretch. And once you found the position when you're sure that you're not tensing up anything, not in the buttocks, not in the hips, not in the groin, not in the neck, and you are giving the weight of the body into the props, that's where you want to stay. And it might be in the beginning it feels comfortable, and after a while it could change. So be open to the possibility of changing that position later on. And it's a very different position because there is this sense of openness, but maybe even being a bit exposed. So it's a good idea to cover yourself with a blanket or place an extra cushion on top of the belly. And that sometimes gives you that extra level of security. That's this subconscious message to the nervous system that you can release. Now your only task is to encourage yourself even further to let go, to sink deep into the support underneath you. Give the weight of your head, give the weight of your back, of your arms, of your pelvis. Give the weight of your legs. Notice that openness and expansion when you breathe in, and the release, softening when you breathe out. Let your breath flow freely, completely natural breath, but you remain conscious of it, of the constant flow of the breath and the way it moves through the body. And at the same time, keep on monitoring. Are you still feeling 100% comfortable? And if some sensation starts getting more intense after a while, and it simply stops being fully comfortable, give yourself permission to change it by using more props or changing the position of the legs or arms. Softening, sinking, softening, sinking. And you can try these deeper, fuller breaths with a loud sigh. Perhaps one more time. Now, in order to come out of this position, you would be moving bit by bit, very slowly. So if you moved your arms farther out to the sides, the first thing that will move will be your arms coming closer towards your body. If you had your legs out in a butterfly pose out to the sides, you can use your hands to join the knees and to rest your feet on the ground. If you had your legs outstretched, first bend one knee and place the foot on the mat, and then do the same with the other knee. In either case, stay for a moment with the knees bent and feet on the mat before you move on. You can move away the prop from one side and then slowly roll yourself to lying on the side in a fetal curl for a couple of breaths. If it's easy enough, you can gently push away that support you had underneath your spine, just to notice how it will be to rest with your entire back and shoulders on the mat. And then give yourself a permission to do anything that your body is craving for. It might be bringing the knees to the chest, so gently rocking. Perhaps you want to stretch out the legs and arms and yawn. Do anything that feels good. And only when and if you're ready, you can again roll to the side. And after a couple of breaths, come up. I hope that you enjoyed this practice and that it's going to bring a little bit more peace into your day and into your Christmas. And if you have time to check out other videos, then check out my channel. There's plenty of shorter practices there. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button as I upload and share a new video every week. Have a great Christmas.